I'm Mateo with Command Access, and in the wake of our launch of the world's first latch retraction in the cylindrical lock, there was a few comments, a few questions that have come up that I'd like to clarify or dive a little deeper into, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page and we are going together down this road, pioneering a new function in the industry. So when we say world's first, we're talking about for cylindrical locks. So latch retraction was not available in cylindrical locks. Yes, it's been available in mortise locks, narrow style mortise locks, and traditional. We were one of the first to introduce in traditional mortise locks in our LPM 190, which is the Schlage L9000 retrofit. Now are the first ones to be introducing it in a cylindrical format or form factor as well. It's working off 24 volts only. The difference between this and your standard electrified hardware is the latch retracts without having to manually pull down the handle. So this isn't our solution to replacing all electrified hardware. There's definitely still a place for your standard electrified cylindrical lock. Biggest application or use case we see for this, whether it's in government, education, commercial, is anytime you're adding a low energy operator onto the door and you need to get that latch out of the way so that the operator can open. This is a great solution. We've seen the growth on our mortise side, the LPMs being used more frequently, and we've seen other now large manufacturers like Sargent within the last few months release their latch retraction in a mortise lock. So we know with some of the ADA laws and requirements changing, we believe this is going to continue to grow. So we're excited to be able to offer that now in a cylindrical lock. So checking out some of these other comments that we've seen from some various social media posts is, will this lock handle back pressure? It can handle a little bit of preload. I would say the majority of cylindrical locks, in my experience, are in interior door installations, not exterior. I would definitely always recommend an exit device or a mortise lock in an exterior door. Interior doors shouldn't have a lot of preload on there if the installation is done properly, and most operators now have the option to release preload. Will having this powered on, continuous duty, or in the held back mode generate a lot of heat? The majority of work is being done in the latch retraction portion of it, not the power required to hold the latch back. It's dropping back to about 15 milliamps when it's in the held back mode. So you can electronically, if you're familiar with exit devices, essentially you could dog this door by retracting the latch as long as power is present. And it's only going to consume 15 milliamps. So running that all day, you should have very little heat that builds up with such a low current draw. Switches, this would be great with a door position switch. Something that we could look into, obviously the real estate in a cylindrical lock is much smaller than a mortise lock. So right now, the only switches that are available is your request to exit, which is going to monitor that inside lever. If you want a DPS and you're weighing the wiring and the installation versus an electric strike, you can still all run that to the hinge side, all your wiring. You can get a DPS in a power transfer hinge as well as power transfer. So all your wiring's still done in one spot. That would be my recommendation at this point. Why is there so much bulky hardware and connectors that need to be installed inside the door? We do have our module on the back here. In my opinion, it's a fairly small module, but this is the brains and supplies a little bit of an inrush to the motor. So this is needed to make sure that this lock's working properly. As far as connectors and everything, you can cut if you like to hardwire. We make this plug and play so that side is serviceable. I'd recommend you keep one connector on there and then hardwire everything else. I think it's fairly standard as far as the connector that's on here versus any electrified lock that you install. I haven't seen any Major difference, this is our standard connector that we use across the board. Can this lock be installed without making permanent modifications to rented space where door drilling is not allowed? Obviously, you're going to always want to check your lease agreement. I don't want to give you recommendations as a blanket statement, but I would say that from what I've heard in feedback from the field, the nice thing about electrified hardware in general, not just latch retraction, but electrified hardware versus strikes, is that all your modifications are done inside the door. And so they're not visually or aesthetically changing the opening. So you can drill your raceway, and if it's non-rated, you can use a freehand, you can use the major drill guide. If it's fire rated, you want to make sure that you have something that's Perfect Raceway certified. But again, you're drilling a door, you cannot see it once this lock is installed and the power transfer hinge is installed. It will look like every other door. So at the end of your lease, if they don't want that door electrified, they just want it storeroom, it's really easy to change that back and just pop in a mechanical lock, pop in a mechanical hinge, and sure, you still have a small raceway, but that's not changing the integrity of the opening. Versus an electric strike where you're cutting into a frame, it's really hard to go back if they don't want that door electrified anymore. And remove that strike, you have a big gap now in your frame. So I guess maybe you could cover it up, but still, is that gonna look good? There's gonna be a lot more, I would say, things needed and costs involved in trying to take that opening back to its original appearance versus electrified hardware. Are these noisy when installed in metal frames compared to other electrified options? So I would say, you can hear it for yourself here. It's really quiet. Sure, you're gonna hear a little noise, but with most motorized or solenoids, whether you're hearing the motor engaging, whether you're hearing a little click, there's going to be something, but nothing like what we used to hear from the old solenoids, where you hear this huge clunk, big 16 amp inrush, smashing that solenoid to retract. So I don't think this is going to be noisy to the point where you're going to ever experience complaints. Another question that came up, why would anyone choose this over existing battery powered options? Well, back to my first point, this is latch retraction. So the application here is a low energy operator. So you're already running power 120 probably to your operator. As far as I know, there's no battery powered solutions that offer latch retraction. So again, this isn't just a normal electrified lock. This is latch retraction in a cylindrical lock. So you do have a little bit higher inrush, even though it's a very low holding. And I don't think a battery option would have a long life, especially if it's an active door. So if you need latch retraction to get that latch out of the way to open up the door automatically, then that is why you would choose this over a battery powered option. So these are some of the common questions or concerns that have come up. Interested to hear your ideas, your feedback. If there's other applications, another one I've thought of is in any kind of busy commercial area. Maybe you don't have a low energy operator, but you don't want everybody to badge in each time. Maybe it's more of a common opening that a lot of people are coming through, and you want it held back like an exit device would be DOG. So you have it in the held back mode during business hours, so it's really easy to get in and through that door versus everybody having to badge in, or if it's unlocked, still manually pull down the lever each time, mechanical wear and tear. So that's another application that I've thought of. If there's other applications out there, please let us know. As people start installing these, we'd love to know where you're putting them and why, and feedback of how we can continue improving this. Again, as far as functions right now, it's a storeroom function and a passage function. So storeroom for security, and passage when it's not security, but you have a low energy operator and you just want the latch out of the way. A few different lever styles and finishes. Check out the cut sheet for more information, but we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, and remember, we're always here to help.